Imagine if some of the most powerful tools against cancer were already sitting in your kitchen, quietly working every time you eat. What I'm about to share isn't about magic foods or false promises, but about how certain everyday foods can create an internal environment where cancer cells struggle to survive. And once you understand this, you'll never look at your plate the same way again. Here's the first thing you need to know. Cancer doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It thrives in specific conditions, especially chronic inflammation, high oxidative stress, insulin spikes, and a weakened immune response. So instead of only asking what kills cancer cells, a smarter question is what makes the body hostile to cancer. That's where these foods come in. Let's start with cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. These foods contain compounds that support your liver's detox pathways, helping your body neutralize and eliminate harmful substances before they can damage DNA. Broccoli sprouts, in particular, are incredibly concentrated and help switch on genes that protect your cells at a deep level. Next are berries, especially blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries. Their deep colors come from polyphenols and anthocyanins, which help reduce oxidative stress. Cancer cells rely heavily on oxidative damage and inflammation to grow, and berries help shut that environment down while supporting healthy cell communication. Garlic is another big one. When you crush or chop garlic, it releases sulfur-containing compounds that support immune surveillance. These compounds help your immune system better recognize abnormal cells and deal with them before they become a bigger problem. Garlic also supports healthy gut bacteria, and your gut plays a massive role in immune strength. Turmeric deserves a special mention. Its active compound, curcumin, helps calm chronic inflammation and interferes with pathways cancer cells use to multiply. For best absorption, turmeric works even better when combined with black pepper, and a source of healthy fat. Green tea is another powerful ally. It's rich in catechins, which help protect cells from DNA damage and support normal cell death, a process cancer cells try to avoid. Drinking green tea regularly helps tilt the balance back in favor of healthy cells. Now let's talk about leafy greens like spinach, arugula, and kale. These are packed with folate, magnesium, and chlorophyll, which support DNA repair and help neutralize toxins. Chlorophyll can even bind to certain harmful compounds and help escort them out of the body. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel are next. They provide omega-3 fatty acids which help reduce inflammation and support cell membrane health. Cancer cells often have damaged or dysfunctional membranes, and omega-3s help restore normal signaling between cells. Mushrooms, especially varieties like shiitake and maitake, contain unique compounds that support immune cell activity. They help activate natural killer cells and other immune defenses that are designed to keep abnormal cells in check. Tomatoes, especially when cooked, are rich in lycopene. Lycopene helps protect cells from oxidative damage and supports normal hormone balance. Cooking tomatoes actually increases the availability of lycopene, making sauces and stews a great option. Nuts and seeds, particularly walnuts and flax seeds, provide fiber and plant compounds that help regulate blood sugar and reduce inflammation. Stable blood sugar is critical because cancer cells are highly dependent on glucose for rapid growth. Citrus fruits like lemons, oranges, and grapefruits contain flavonoids that support detoxification enzymes and help reduce cellular stress. They also support collagen and tissue integrity, which matters more than most people realize when it comes to overall cellular health. Finally, fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, and yogurt help strengthen the gut microbiome. A healthy gut trains your immune system, reduces inflammation, and improves nutrient absorption. When your gut is strong, your entire defense system works better. Here's the big takeaway. These foods don't work by attacking your body. They work by supporting it. They help restore balance, improve communication between cells, and strengthen your natural defense systems. And when those systems are working properly, cancer cells lose the advantage they rely on to survive. This is why what you eat consistently matters far more than any single superfood. Every meal is either feeding disease or supporting healing. Start stacking these foods into your daily routine, and you're giving your body the tools it needs to protect itself every single day. Let's slow this down and really understand what this means, because this first point is where everything begins. When we say these foods work by lowering inflammation, stabilizing blood sugar, and reducing oxidative stress, we're talking about changing the internal terrain of your body. Cancer doesn't just grow randomly. It grows when the environment allows it to. And these three factors, inflammation, Blood sugar, chaos, and oxidative stress are like fertilizer for cancer cells. Chronic inflammation is one of the most overlooked drivers of disease. Inflammation is not the enemy by itself. It's a normal immune response. The problem starts when inflammation never shuts off. When your body is inflamed all the time, cells are constantly being damaged and repaired. Every time a cell divides under inflammatory stress, the risk of DNA errors increases. Cancer cells take advantage of this chaos. They thrive in inflamed tissue because the immune system is distracted, exhausted, and confused. This is where anti-inflammatory foods completely change the game. Foods like leafy greens, berries, turmeric, fatty fish, and cruciferous vegetables send calming signals to the immune system. They help lower inflammatory messengers that keep tissues irritated. When inflammation drops, healthy cells can repair themselves properly, and abnormal cells lose the protective smoke screen inflammation gives them. In a calm environment, cancer cells stand out more clearly and are easier for the immune system to detect. Now let's talk about blood sugar, because this is huge. Cancer cells are metabolically greedy. They rely heavily on glucose to fuel their rapid growth. When blood sugar spikes over and over again throughout the day, you're essentially bathing cells in fuel. High insulin levels don't just push glucose into cells, they also activate growth signals. These growth signals don't know the difference between healthy cells and damaged ones. So when insulin is constantly elevated, it sends a message to grow, divide, and multiply, even when cells shouldn't. Foods that stabilize blood sugar interrupt this process. Fiber-rich vegetables, nuts, seeds, healthy fats, and fermented foods slow down glucose absorption. Instead of sharp spikes, you get a steady, controlled release of energy. This matters because stable blood sugar means lower insulin, and lower insulin means fewer growth signals for abnormal cells. Cancer cells hate stability. They depend on metabolic chaos to survive. Reducing oxidative stress is the third piece of this foundation. Oxidative stress happens when there are more free radicals than your body can neutralize. Free radicals are unstable molecules that damage DNA, proteins, and cell membranes. Some oxidative stress is normal, but chronic oxidative stress creates constant cellular injury. Every injury increases the chance of mutation, and cancer cells are essentially cells that have lost their ability to follow normal rules. Antioxidant-rich foods don't work by shutting down all oxidation. They work by restoring balance. Berries, green tea, leafy greens, citrus fruits, and colorful vegetables provide compounds that neutralize excess free radicals while supporting your body's own antioxidant systems. This is important because your body doesn't just rely on what you eat. It also produces its own antioxidants internally, but it needs the right nutrients to do that effectively. When oxidative stress is lowered, DNA damage decreases. Cell membranes stay intact. Communication between cells improves. Cancer cells often rely on damaged communication systems to avoid detection. When those systems are restored, abnormal cells lose one of their biggest survival advantages. Here's where these three factors come together. Inflammation, blood sugar instability, and oxidative stress don't exist separately. They feed each other. High blood sugar increases oxidative stress. Oxidative stress increases inflammation. Inflammation worsens insulin resistance. It becomes a vicious cycle that cancer cells exploit. The foods we're talking about help break that cycle from multiple angles at the same time. Take fiber as an example. Fiber doesn't just help digestion. It feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Those bacteria produce compounds that lower inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, and strengthen the gut barrier. A stronger gut barrier means fewer toxins leaking into the bloodstream, which directly reduces inflammatory load. This is why diets rich in whole plant foods consistently show better outcomes for metabolic and immune health. Healthy fats play a similar role. Omega-3 fats from fish, flax seeds, and walnuts help regulate inflammatory pathways. They literally change the structure of cell membranes, making them more flexible and responsive. Cancer cells often have rigid, dysfunctional membranes. When membrane health improves, signaling improves, and abnormal cells are less able to hide or hijack growth signals. Even something as simple as cooking methods matter. Overprocessed, burned, or fried foods increase oxidative stress. Gently cooked vegetables, soups, stews, and lightly sautéed foods are easier on the body. This reduces the overall oxidative burden your cells have to deal with. Less burden means more energy available for repair and immune surveillance. Another key point here is that lowering inflammation doesn't weaken your immune system. This is a common misunderstanding. Chronic inflammation actually suppresses effective immunity. When inflammation is constant, immune cells become less responsive. They stop reacting appropriately to or ill threats. By calming inflammation, these foods help immune cells function more accurately and efficiently. Blood sugar stability also affects immune performance. Immune cells need energy, but they function best when glucose levels are steady. Constant spikes and crashes exhaust them. Stable blood sugar allows immune cells to stay alert and responsive, which is critical for identifying abnormal cells early. What's powerful about this approach is that it doesn't rely on extremes. It's not about eliminating everything you enjoy or following rigid rules. It's about consistently choosing foods that send supportive signals. Over time, those signals add up. Gene expression changes. Inflammatory markers decrease. Insulin sensitivity improves. Oxidative damage slows down. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. One antioxidant smoothie won't cancel out weeks of inflammatory eating, but daily exposure to anti-inflammatory, blood sugar stabilizing, antioxidant-rich food slowly reshapes the internal environment. Cancer cells need a very specific environment to survive. When that environment disappears, their ability to thrive is dramatically reduced. Your body is constantly monitoring itself. Cells with damage appear every day. The difference between health and disease often comes down to whether the environment allows those cells to be corrected, removed, or encouraged to grow. By lowering inflammation, stabilizing blood sugar, and reducing oxidative stress, you're giving your body the conditions it needs to stay in control. This isn't about fear, it's about empowerment. Every meal is information. Every bite sends a message to your cells. When you consistently choose foods that calm inflammation, steady blood sugar, and protect against oxidative damage, you're not just eating. You're actively shaping the terrain inside your body in a way that makes it very difficult for cancer to gain a foothold. Let's go deeper into the second point, because this is where a lot of confusion exists. When we talk about supporting detoxification, immune surveillance, and healthy cell communication, we're not talking about extreme cleanses or forcing the body to do something unnatural. We're talking about helping the systems that already exist do their jobs more efficiently. Your body is incredibly intelligent. Every single day, it is identifying damaged cells, neutralizing harmful compounds, and maintaining order at a microscopic level. Problems arise when these systems are overloaded or undernourished. Detoxification is happening in your body all the time, especially in the liver, gut, kidneys, and lymphatic system. The liver alone processes hormones, medications, environmental chemicals, and metabolic waste. This happens in phases. First, substances are neutralized, and then they are packaged and safely eliminated. If those pathways are under-supported, toxins can circulate longer than they should. Prolonged exposure to these substances increases cellular stress and raises the risk of DNA damage. Foods that support detoxification don't flush the body. They provide the nutrients the liver needs to complete these steps safely. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cabbage, and cauliflower contain compounds that help activate detox enzymes. Leafy greens provide chlorophyll, which can bind to certain harmful compounds in the gut and help escort them out of the body before they're absorbed. Citrus fruits supply nutrients that support enzyme function and bioflow, which is essential for waste removal. Fiber is one of the most underrated detox tools. When the liver processes waste, much of it is sent to the gut for elimination. If fiber intake is low, those substances can be reabsorbed instead of removed. Fiber acts like a carrying system, helping bind waste and move it out efficiently. This reduces the overall toxic burden the body has to manage. Now let's talk about immune surveillance, because this is critical. Your immune system isn't just there to fight infections. One of its most important roles is monitoring cells for abnormal behavior. Every day, cells with damage appear. In a healthy system, immune cells recognize these abnormalities and respond appropriately. This process is called immune surveillance. Certain foods help keep this system alert and responsive. Mushrooms contain unique compounds that support immune cell activity, especially cells involved in identifying abnormal cells. Garlic supports immune signaling. Ling and helps immune cells communicate more effectively. Fermented foods strengthen the gut microbiome, and this matters because a large portion of your immune system is trained in the gut. A diverse, balanced microbiome helps immune cells learn the difference between normal tissue and potential threats. When the immune system is overwhelmed by chronic inflammation, poor nutrition, or gut imbalance, surveillance becomes less precise. Immune cells may become sluggish or confused. Supporting immune function through nutrition isn't about overstimulation, it's about balance. Calm, well-nourished immune cells are far more effective than constantly activated ones. Healthy cell communication is the third part of this keynote, and it's often overlooked. Your cells are constantly sending and receiving signals. These signals tell cells when to grow, when to repair, and when to rest. Healthy cells respond to these signals appropriately. Damaged cells often lose this ability. They stop listening. Cell membranes play a huge role here. They are made largely of fats, and their quality determines how well signals pass in and out. Diets rich in healthy fats help maintain flexible, responsive membranes. Omega-3 fats, for example, support proper signaling and help reduce inappropriate growth signals. When membranes are damaged or rigid, communication breaks down. Antioxidant-rich foods also support communication by protecting receptors and signaling molecules from damage. When oxidative stress is high, signals become distorted. Cells may receive the wrong message or miss important cues altogether. By reducing this damage, foods like berries, green tea, and colorful vegetables help restore clarity to cellular conversations. Another important piece of communication happens through the gut. The gut microbiome produces compounds that influence inflammation, immune function, and even gene expression. When beneficial bacteria are well fed with fiber and fermented foods, they produce substances that support normal cell behavior. This is one of the reasons gut health has such a profound impact on overall health. Hormone balance is also part of cell communication. Hormones are messengers. When detox pathways are sluggish, hormones may not be cleared efficiently, leading to prolonged signaling. Certain foods support healthy hormone metabolism by improving liver function and gut elimination. This helps prevent overstimulation of cells that are sensitive to hormonal signals. What's powerful about this approach is that it works quietly and consistently. There's no dramatic sensation when detox pathways improve. You don't feel immune surveillance activating. You don't notice cells communicating better. But over time, the internal environment becomes more orderly. Systems run with less friction. Stress on cells decreases. This is why whole foods matter more than isolated supplements. Whole foods provide networks of nutrients that work together. Fiber, antioxidants, minor, ALS, and plant compounds don't act alone. They support multiple systems simultaneously. This creates resilience. When one pathway is stressed, others can compensate. It's also important to understand that detoxification and immune support are not short-term projects. They are ongoing needs. Exposure to environmental stressors is unavoidable. What matters is how well your body can process and adapt. Consistently eating foods that support these systems reduces the cumulative burden over time. Another key concept here is that efficiency matters more than force. Forcing detox through extreme measures can actually stress the body. Supporting detox gently through nutrition allows the body to regulate itself. The same applies to immune function. Balanced support leads to precision, not overreaction. Healthy cell communication also depends on adequate micronutrients. Minerals like magnesium and zinc are involved in hundreds of enzymatic reactions. Without them, signaling pathways slow down or misfire. Whole foods provide these minerals in forms the body can recognize and use effectively. As these systems improve, the body becomes better at maintaining internal order. Abnormal cells are more likely to be identified early. Damaged cells are more likely to repair themselves properly. Signals telling cells to stop dividing are more likely to be heard. This is the deeper message behind this keynote. These foods don't target disease directly. They support the systems that keep disease from gaining momentum in the first place. They restore communication, clarity, and balance at the cellular level. When detox pathways are supported, immune surveillance is sharp, and cell communication is clear. The body is operating the way it was designed to. That state of balance doesn't guarantee anything, but it dramatically improves resilience. And resilience is one of the most powerful protective factors you can build, one meal at a time. Let's unpack this third point carefully, because it's where most people either succeed long-term or quietly give up. The idea that consistency matters More than intensity sounds simple, but it goes against how we're conditioned to think. We're taught to look for powerful interventions, dramatic changes, and fast results, but the body doesn't work on drama. It works on patterns. Your cells respond to what you do repeatedly, not occasionally. One healthy meal doesn't undo weeks of inflammatory eating, just like one stressful day doesn't destroy your health. What shapes your internal environment is what you expose it to again and again. Cancer doesn't develop overnight, and it doesn't lose its advantage overnight either. It responds to sustained conditions. This is why extreme approaches usually fail. When people go all in with intense dietary changes, cleanses, or rigid rules, the body experiences stress. Stress hormones rise, blood sugar becomes unstable, and inflammation can actually increase, even if the food choices are technical, like healthy. The intensity creates a strain that's not sustainable. Eventually, people burn out, return to old habits, and the cycle starts again. Consistency works differently. When you regularly eat foods that support inflammation control, blood sugar balance, detox pathways, and immune function, the body adapts slowly but deeply. Enzyme systems adjust, gut bacteria shift. Gene expression begins to favor repair over damage. None of this requires perfection. It requires repetition. Think of it like steering a large ship. You don't turn it sharply all at once. You make small, steady adjustments. Over time, the direction completely changes. That's exactly how the body responds to consistent nutritional signals. Cancer cells rely on persistence. They depend on a long-term environment that supports their survival. Chronic inflammation doesn't happen in a week. Insulin resistance doesn't appear after a few high-sugar meals. Oxidative damage accumulates slowly, so the solution mirrors the problem. It's not about a single powerful action. It's about removing support over time. When you consistently eat foods that lower inflammation, the baseline inflammatory tone of the body drops. This isn't something you feel dramatically, but lab markers change, tissue irritation decreases, and immune cells function with more precision. Cancer cells lose the inflammatory cover they depend on to avoid detection. When blood sugar is consistently stable, insulin signaling changes. Cells become more sensitive. V to insulin, meaning less, is needed to do the same job. Growth signals quiet down. Metabolic stress decreases. Cancer cells, which rely heavily on glucose and growth signals, lose a steady fuel supply, not instantly, but progressively. Reducing oxidative stress works the same way. One antioxidant-rich meal doesn't reverse DNA damage, but daily exposure to protective compounds reduces the rate of new damage. Over months and years, that difference becomes massive. Fewer mutations occur. Repair mechanisms keep up. Cellular systems stay organized. Another reason consistency matters is because the body prioritizes survival. When changes are gradual and steady, the body incorporates them without resistance. When changes are extreme, the body often compensates in ways that undermine progress. This is especially true with restrictive diets. The body senses deprivation and shifts into conservation mode. Consistent nourishment sends a different message. It tells the body that resources are reliable. This allows energy to be allocated toward maintenance, repair, and immune surveillance instead of emergency responses. Cancer thrives in chaos. Order works against it. Consistency also affects the gut microbiome in a powerful way. Gut bacteria don't change overnight. They respond to what you feed them regularly. When fiber-rich foods, fermented foods, and plant diversity are present day after day, beneficial bacteria flourish. These bacteria produce compounds that reduce inflammation, support immune function, and influence gene expression. An inconsistent diet creates an unstable microbiome. Bacteria that thrive on sugar and processed foods bloom temporarily, then crash. This instability increases gut permeability and inflammation. A consistent diet creates balance. Balance creates resilience. Another overlooked aspect of consistency is decision fatigue. Intense approaches require constant willpower. You're always deciding what you can't eat. That mental load adds stress, which undermines the very systems you're trying to support. Consistent habits reduce decision-making. When healthy choices become routine, they stop feeling like effort. This is why building simple, repeatable meals works so well. You don't need endless variety. You need reliable exposure to supportive foods, a handful of vegetables you eat often, a few protein sources you rotate, healthy fats you use daily. This predictability helps the body and the mind. Consistency also allows you to notice subtle changes. Improved digestion, more stable energy, better sleep. These are signs that internal systems are regulating. Intense approaches often mask these signals because the body is too busy adapting. 2. Stress. Another important point is that consistency builds momentum. The longer you maintain supportive habits, the easier they become. Taste preferences change, cravings decrease, blood sugar stabilizes naturally. This makes it easier to continue without force. Cancer prevention and resilience are not about control. They're about cooperation with the body. When you work with your physiology instead of against it, results compound. Small daily actions stack up in ways that dramatic interventions never do. This principle also applies to what you avoid. You don't need to eliminate every inflammatory food forever, but consistently reducing exposure matters. Occasional indulgences don't define your internal environment. Patterns do. When supportive foods dominate most meals, the body can handle occasional stress without losing balance. Consistency also protects you psychologically. When health becomes part of daily life rather than a special project, it stops feeling fragile. You're not on or off a plan. You're just living in a way that supports your body. That mindset reduces anxiety, which itself plays a role in immune and hormonal health. Another key factor is timing. Consistent meal timing supports circadian rhythms. These rhythms regulate hormone release, immune function, and cellular repair. Irregular eating patterns disrupt these cycles. When meals are predictable, the body synchronizes its repair process more effectively. Sleep quality also improves with consistency. Stable blood sugar and reduced inflammation support deeper sleep. Sleep is when much of cellular repair and immune regulation occurs. This is another example of how consistency in one area amplifies benefits in another. It's also important to understand that consistency allows the body to reveal what it needs. When your diet is chaotic, symptoms are confusing. When your diet is steady, patterns become clear. You can notice which foods support you and which ones don't. This feedback loop is incredibly valuable from a long-term perspective. Consistency reduces cumulative damage. Disease risk is strongly influenced by total lifetime exposure to stressors. Every day you choose supportive foods, you slightly lower that total. Over years, that difference is enormous. This is why focusing on daily habits is more powerful than chasing breakthroughs. Breakthroughs are exciting, but habits are transformative. Habits reshape biology. The most important thing to remember is that consistency doesn't mean rigidity. Flexibility is part of sustainability. The goal is direction, not perfection. Progress, not pressure. When you consistently give your body what it needs, it does what it's designed to do. It repairs, it regulates, it protects. Cancer cells lose the long-term conditions they depend on to survive. This is the quiet power behind this keynote. Not dramatic, not extreme, just steady, supportive choices repeated over time. And when you look back months or years later, the change isn't subtle at all. It's profound.